Have you ever noticed how silence can slowly enter a relationship without making any noise at all? Not through arguments, not through anger, but through a quiet shift that you feel before you can explain it. One day everything feels connected, conversations flow, attention feels natural. And then gradually, almost invisibly, something changes. He starts pulling away, not dramatically, not obviously, just enough for you to feel it in your chest. Replies take longer. Words become shorter. Emotional presence fades, and you are left trying to understand what went wrong without ever being told that anything did. This kind of distance is deeply unsettling because it doesn't give you closure. It gives you questions, and unanswered questions create anxiety. Anxiety creates self-doubt, and self-doubt slowly turns into emotional exhaustion. Many people assume that when someone pulls away, it means they no longer care. But psychology tells us that behavior is rarely that simple. Often what looks like disinterest on the surface is actually fear operating underneath. Fear that lives quietly in the mind, shaped by experiences long before this relationship ever existed. Emotional closeness can feel safe to one person and threatening to another. And when closeness starts triggering discomfort, the nervous system reacts before the conscious mind has time to explain what is happening. For many men in particular, emotional expression was never modeled as something safe. Vulnerability was not encouraged. Feelings were often met with silence or judgment. So over time, the mind learns that distance equals protection, that staying emotionally contained prevents pain. And when a relationship begins to deepen, when expectations grow, when intimacy becomes real, the body interprets this as risk, not love, and the safest response it knows is withdrawal. This is not always a conscious choice. It is a learned survival pattern, rooted in attachment styles formed early in life. Attachment is the blueprint the brain uses to understand connection. It develops based on how love was received or withheld as a child. Inconsistent care, emotional neglect, or unpredictable affection teaches the nervous system to stay alert, to never fully relax into closeness, because closeness once meant disappointment or abandonment. So even in adulthood, even in a healthy relationship, the body remembers and responds as if the past is happening again. This is why someone can pull away even when nothing is wrong. Even when they care deeply, even when they don't want to lose the connection, distance becomes a way to regulate overwhelming emotions. And the signs of this withdrawal are often subtle. He may still show up physically, but emotionally feels absent. He avoids deeper conversations, deflects emotional questions, changes the subject when vulnerability appears. Humor replaces honesty. Distraction replaces presence, and the other person senses the shift immediately, because emotional absence is felt before it is understood. Naturally, the instinct is to restore connection, to ask questions, to seek reassurance, to close the emotional gap. But this response, although understandable, often intensifies the cycle, because to someone who is already overwhelmed by closeness, increased emotional demand feels like pressure, and pressure reinforces the belief that distance is necessary. This creates a painful loop. One person leans in, the other pulls away, both feeling misunderstood, both feeling unsafe in different ways. What makes this dynamic especially damaging is how easily it becomes personalized. The person experiencing the distance begins to question their worth, replay conversations, analyze every word, searching for the mistake that caused the shift, while the person pulling away often cannot articulate what they are feeling. They just know they need space. And neither side feels seen. This misunderstanding is not caused by a lack of care. It is caused by a lack of emotional awareness. Understanding this changes everything, because it allows you to separate behavior from intention. Pulling away does not automatically mean rejection. Sometimes it means the person does not have the tools to stay emotionally present during moments of intimacy. Real growth begins when you stop reacting to distance with fear and start responding with clarity. This does not mean suppressing your needs or tolerating emotional inconsistency. It means choosing grounded awareness over emotional escalation. You begin to notice patterns instead of blaming yourself, recognizing that closeness often triggers withdrawal, and withdrawal is often followed by return when emotional intensity decreases. This awareness protects your emotional balance because you stop chasing connection that must be freely given, and instead create space without abandoning yourself. Emotional safety is not created through explanations alone. It is created through calm presence, consistency, and emotional regulation. People feel safer returning when they do not feel pressured to perform emotionally. And this does not guarantee that every relationship will work, but it gives you power. The power to respond intentionally instead of reactively, to understand rather than assume, and to choose relationships where emotional growth is mutual. One of the most misunderstood truths in relationship psychology is that pulling away does not always signal the end. Sometimes it signals an internal conflict between desire and fear, between wanting closeness and not knowing how to handle it. When you understand this, you stop chasing answers from someone who may not have them yet, and start creating clarity within yourself. Because the goal is not to convince someone to stay. The goal is to understand whether emotional safety exists on both sides. Relationships thrive not when distance disappears, but when both people learn how to stay present through it. And this insight, once internalized, changes how you interpret silence, how you respond to withdrawal, and how you protect your emotional well-being. Because the strongest relationships are not built on constant reassurance. They are built on awareness, emotional regulation, and the ability to stay grounded even when uncertainty appears.